Good afternoon, everyone. We've got another fun installment of the Land Use and Ethics Subcommittee on tap for today. We have one bill on our agenda. It is HB 17. This bill is an administration bill from the Planning Department, and it's about the housing elements in charter counties' comprehensive plans. So I believe this was actually a bill from our current comptroller back in the day, maybe 2016 or 2017, where charter counties had to have a housing element in their comprehensive plan for the first time. And what this bill does is require these charter counties to include in this housing element requirements to affirmatively further fair housing. And for those of y'all that are unfamiliar with the AFFH phraseology, this comes out of the Fair Housing Act of 1968 on the federal level. There was a commission, and President Johnson was involved, and essentially the decision was made on the federal level at that time that there had been such a history of discrimination in the housing context in this country from redlining onward, that it wasn't good enough for federal agencies, including HUD and federal grantees who received federal funding. It wasn't going to be good enough for them to just not discriminate. Stopping discrimination would be kind of the bare minimum. And the determination was made that they would need to instead, in order to eradicate past discrimination, they would need to so-called affirmatively further fair housing, to use strategies to proactively try to reverse past decades of housing discrimination. And that language has kind of undergone on the federal level various twists and turns depending on who has been in the Oval Office over the years. That's neither really here nor there. This bill does is seek to put charter counties on parity, on the same plane as non-charter counties. The General Assembly passed a bill a couple of years ago, I think actually 3 years ago, that required non-charter counties to affirmatively further fair housing. For whatever reason, I don't know exactly, why charter counties were excluded from that. I don't think that the planning department knows the answer to that either. But this bill seeks to, through the housing element, the charter counties housing element, basically put charter counties on the same page as non-charter counties that already have this requirement. Delegate Lehman has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that background and that history. I did not remember all of that, so that's very useful. My question is about the language on page 3, lines 9 to 11, paragraph 4. This subsection does not require a county to take or prohibit a county from taking a specific action to affirmatively further fair housing. Can you explain that, or can council explain that?
Yeah, I'm happy to take a crack at it first. So my take on that section is basically that when we talk about affirmatively furthering fair housing, we are not talking about specific actions necessarily that you have to take. Now, what this is related to is trying to eradicate areas of discrimination, trying to take stock of residential parts of a county or a jurisdiction that are still racially segregated, for example, and what can take place to integrate those areas, but it doesn't dictate one type of strategy over another. And therefore it gives counties flexibility on what strategies they want to adopt in order to affirmatively further fair housing. But I will say, I'm not an expert. Ben, if I left anything out of my, okay, so Ben's given me at least a B+. We have, however, invited Mr. Griffiths and Mr. Wilson from the planning department who came up with the bill. If anyone has any questions for them, I'm happy to call on them and they'll turn their cameras on if we need any guidance from them. But for now, I guess we'll just operate on the assumption that my explanation was okay. So does anyone else have any questions about this bill? Delegate Long's hands up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I apologize for my tardiness. I just wanted to lift this up really quick. I asked this during committee, and I believe this is still true, that the commission and code home charter, the commission form of government and the code home rule are already engaged within this process.
That's right. That's exactly right. So non-charter counties, the home rule counties and the commissioner counties, based on a bill that the General Assembly already passed a couple of years ago, they already have been working through this, and it's just the charter counties that have not been. And so this just puts them on par, the charter counties on par. And also there are, I've neglected to mention, there are a few jurisdictions in the state, I think 6, that are sort of HUD designated communities. And because of that, because of their affiliation with HUD, they've also been under sort of HUD's purview in affirmatively furthering fair housing. So the intent of this bill really is not to break any new ground, but is instead to sort of try to put the entire state on the same page.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Chairman Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Also noted in the bill, it says that the project shall remain in public ownership. Does that mean then that for 99 years, does that mean that the ownership has to be county, nonprofit, DHCD, et cetera? Is that correct?
I think we may be on a different bill.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I think you may be on HB 7.
Oh, I'm on 7. You are correct.
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. Yep. You gave me a chance to look like I really know about every bill. The only reason I know that provision in that bill is because it's my bill. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to just pull that out of my hat like that. But yeah, this is HB 17. Happy to answer that question on HB 7 though when the time comes, Mr. Chairman. And I guess with that scene, and Delegate Lehman, is that a fresh hand or an old hand you got?
No, Mr. Chair, no, I don't have another question. I need to lower my hand. Thank you for the reminder.
Delegate Naraki. You're muted. Delegate Naraki, I don't know. I can't tell if you're trying to speak. You're muted, or I can't tell. Maybe you're trying to find.
There we go. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are in Baltimore County. We're already operating under a housing decree with the Federal Department of Housing. I'm just curious how this bill would affect us, if at all, or if it changes anything, that sort of thing. And obviously, that's a very specific question to Baltimore County, but just curious.
Yeah, that's actually a great question that I don't know the answer to. So I think that's a good threshold or a good excuse to bring in our folks from planning. Mr. Wilson, Mr. Griffiths, you're welcome to turn your cameras on. If you have any thoughts about the Baltimore County issue in particular, and answer Delegate Naraki's question, that would be extremely helpful. But also, if you care to just comment briefly about the impetus of the bill or about the faults in my explanation thereof, that would also be really helpful.
Thank you, Chair Stewart. No, I thought your explanation was well made and addressed. I think it was well done. Specific to the Baltimore County question, now I can't speak to the details of the consent order. My understanding is that that's a consent order with U.S. HUD, and this would not affect it. And now, while the consent order does deal with fair housing, this is specific to state requirements for charter county comprehensive plans. So this would be the requirement which you have to have in a comprehensive plan as related to affirmatively furthering fair housing. It might be something that you share with HUD, that you've added this to a comprehensive plan and you're addressing it there, but it doesn't, from my understanding, from a state perspective, meeting the requirements of this bill and your comprehensive planning requirements are detached from the specific requirements you have for the consent.
Yeah, and thank you, Mr. Griffiths. I think what I would add to that is I just briefly Googled this, Delegate Naraki, and it looks like Baltimore County does have a whole page on its website about affirmatively furthering fair housing. So it seems like, from my cursory review of this, it seems like this is probably something the county's already doing, either based on a federal mandate or not. And so I think to Mr. Griffiths' point, rather, I almost gave you a demotion there, Mr. Griffiths. I think that probably the new requirement on Baltimore County would be to basically just include in their housing element, in their comprehensive plan, what they've already been doing in this space. That'd be my guess, but we can try to find a better answer for you. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So piggybacking on what Delegate Naraki asked, so do we have any idea how many charter counties have or don't have this element in their comprehensive plan? I mean, I assume that Baltimore County probably isn't the only charter county that has done this. I just wonder how many charter counties we're talking about who have to make a change here.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I have to admit I haven't been reading these comprehensive plans in every charter county, like as my evening reading or anything. Mr. Griffiths, Mr. Wilson, do y'all know the answer to that question offhand? We can certainly find the answer for you, Delegate Foley, if they don't.
Yeah, I don't think I can give you a number or list them all right now, which ones do or don't. So 2019 is when HB 1045 was passed, which was for the first time requiring all comprehensive plans. That was for all charter counties, non-charter counties, and municipalities. They had to include a housing element in their comprehensive plans starting on June 1st of 2020. And that didn't mean that on June 1st of 2020, all comprehensive plans had to be updated to include a housing element. It meant that all comprehensive plans adopted after that date had to include a housing element. Now, HB 1045 in 2019 specifically focused on affordability, and it was planning for affordable housing at different income levels based on HUD's area median income calculations, which are updated each year. So when they added HB 90, or when HB 90 passed, they added in addition to the requirement to plan for affordability in your housing element, you also had to affirmatively further fair housing in your housing element. And that was added, that became effective of January 1st of last year. And again, that was only applied to non-charter counties and municipalities. So, I'd have to go back and look. Not every single county or municipality has updated or adopted a new comprehensive plan since the effective date of either of those bills. So really we'd be looking at those that have been adopted since either the affordable component was effective or the fair housing component was effective. Specific to the idea of, and we were talking about Baltimore County earlier, there are 7 counties in Maryland that are called HUD entitlement communities. And these are counties they define them as qualified urban counties with populations of at least 200,000, subtracting the population of municipalities within those counties that are themselves entitlement communities. So these are Anne Arundel, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Harford, Howard, Montgomery, and Prince George's. So since they're entitlement communities, they've been working with affirmatively furthering fair housing requirements forever, essentially, as long as they've been entitlement, because they have to report out, they have to do these assessments to HUD because they get their money directly from HUD. So they should be very familiar with this. It should be, comprehensive planning is never easy, but more straightforward for them because they have a lot of experience to insert this in their comprehensive plans. Now, for the charter counties that are not entitlement communities, if they are receiving funding from Department of Housing and Community Development, Maryland's DHCD, like through community development block grant programs or other HUD-funded programs, they need to affirmatively further fair housing specific to those projects, but not in this larger planning process, consolidated plans, analysis of impediments that entitlement communities have. But so I know that's a long answer that probably meandered and didn't get to the exact question.
No, that's helpful. And Delegate Foley, I would just also add, I'll let you ask a follow-up if you'd like. I just want to add, hopefully my internet's being a little choppy, but counties only have to create these comprehensive plans or update them rather every 10 years.
Right. Yeah. So I'm just trying to, figure out, it sounds like we're talking about a pretty small number. That this would require, some additional change or work or, something that they're not already doing. Okay.
Yeah,
thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you. And there's probably also a population of counties for whom maybe they didn't include it in their last comprehensive plan, but even if we hadn't passed this bill or aren't going to pass this bill, may have already included it anyway too. They were already planning to include that in their next one. Delegate Lehman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for an opportunity to ask a second question. So in looking over the language around comprehensive plans, I'm wondering, Mr. Griffiths or whoever had a hand in crafting the bill, Did you think about addressing master plans or because in Prince George's, where I was on the council for 8 years, we the county is carved up into smaller areas that are defined by a master plan or even a sub-region, so those are regional, but then you can have sub-region master plans. Those are updated more often. I'm just, because I had the concern about how often is a comprehensive plan updated? Something that we did as I was leaving the council and the work continued into the next council was this major overhaul of the Prince George's County plan. And it had not been overhauled, the entire county plan, but that includes the zoning pieces of it for like 40 years. So, was that discussed at all, whether to try to get at this as well at the master plan level, just because I would think that would happen sooner, even if it would happen in pieces?
Yeah, that's a very Chair. Do you want me to respond?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and it's so the land use article doesn't, while it enables, empowers jurisdictions to do master planning, sector planning, sub-area planning, it doesn't reach down into what they all need to require as much as it does a larger comprehensive plan. So it doesn't say like these are the different components you have to have of a master plan, but it does say that your master planning, or they refer to it as planning actions, need to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. So that the idea would be that if you affirmatively furthered fair housing or a fair housing assessment in your umbrella comprehensive plan, that those sub-area master plans, which are often incorporated by reference into the larger comprehensive plan, would be an extension of it, and they would be consistent with it, but they don't have to have all the same components in them themselves as defined in the comprehensive plan. Now, when it comes to whether or not, say they have a 10-year-old comprehensive plan or 5-year-old comprehensive plan, and they update their master plan before they update the comprehensive plan, and whether or not that needs to have AFFH in it, the land use article isn't, in my understanding, very clear on that. That's probably a legal question. I'm not a lawyer on where those nuances are drawn. So this bill is specifically focusing on the master or the comprehensive plan, with the understanding that's already established in the land use article that all of the plans locally should be consistent and work together.
Okay, that's helpful. I would just, I guess, last question or suggestion, if you have not, I would at least run this by Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, which is the, planning agency for both Montgomery and Prince George's counties, just to say, just to run it by them and say, does this cover all the bases? Is this going to be efficient enough and happen soon enough? If, like, in the event a county did just go through this and now they're not going to go through this exercise again for 10 more years. That's just a suggestion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Lehman. Delegate Naraki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate a second bite at the apple here. Just following on, I think, on Delegate Foley's question. So it seems like it would be a relatively small number of counties. Are we talking like Cecil County, Wicomico, Mr. Griffiths? Maybe you know the answer to that. I mean, it seems like most are probably already, adhering to this. So do you know which counties would be added?
I do. I have the list. And I know there was a comment earlier about code home rule counties already being included. I'll have to double check on that. My understanding is that code home rule counties and charter counties, for the purposes of the land use article, which sections of the land use article address them, are under the same one. So in our interpretation of this bill, and as we're describing it, is that code home rule counties do not currently have to affirmatively further fair housing in their comprehensive plans. So this would be charter and code home rule. I can double check with our council, because again, this also gets very, very legal, and I'm not an expert on it, but my understanding is that the different sections of the land use articles apply to both of them. So I can give you the list of charter and code home rule counties which would be this requirement would be added to them, and that currently do not have it. So there's one I mentioned earlier that are entitlement communities: Anne Arundel, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Hartford, Howard, Montgomery, and Prince George's. And then charter counties that are non-entitlement communities are Allegheny, Caroline, Cecil, Charles, Dorchester, Frederick, Kent, Queen Anne's, Talbot, Wacomico, and Worcester. So the only counties that currently, if they were to adopt a housing element or a new comprehensive plan today, that would have to meet the AFFH requirements are Calvert, Carroll, Garrett, Somerset, St. Mary's, and Washington.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Griffiths. That's helpful.
Welcome.
Delegate Long.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I want to make sure I'm hearing Mr. Griffiths correctly. You mentioned Calvert in one of your previous statements, and you said that they have yet to the list.
No, Calvert's a non-charter county, so this requirement is already in their section of the land use article. So the housing element requirements for non-charter counties and municipalities are in 3-114 of the land use article, which HB 90 in 2021 amended to include this exact same wording.
Okay.
But now Calvert updated their comprehensive plan in 2018 was their last adopted one. So the next time they update it, they would have to include a housing element that meets the requirements of both the affordability in HB 1045 and HB 90. But so that law already exists for them.
Understood. Thank you so very much.
All right. So I appreciate all the input in the discussion. This was really great. With that, I'm going to wrap it up. I don't think that I'm going to entertain a motion today. I think it would be nice to have a week for us to marinate on this bill. Mr. Griffiths, Mr. Wilson, we appreciate you all coming. I think my staff will probably reach out to y'all just for maybe a little bit more clarifying info on some of the questions that the subcommittee members raise. And as far as the members go, if you all have any other additional questions or concerns you want to flag for me, and we'll plan to take this bill back up maybe with another bill or two next week. Yes, Delegate Davis.
I personally am ready. Can we take a poll as to who's ready to vote on it?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if there is an appetite, if folks feel like they had their questions answered, I'm not opposed to moving forward. Who feels like they're ready?
All of us.
Okay. Who feels like they're not ready? Okay. All right. Well, touche. I'm happy to be overruled then. I think I read the temperature a little bit incorrectly. Well, with that then, Delegate Davis, are you making a motion?
Yeah, I move that we vote favorable on the bill.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. The bill has been properly moved favorable and seconded. Is there any additional discussion before we take a vote? Yes, Delegate Lehman.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to abstain until I hear something from Maryland National Capital Park and Planning.
That's okay. Yeah, we can. We'll try to get more information for you before full hearing. I mean, obviously, it's still early in the week. Yeah. We probably won't vote as a committee until Friday, so we'll have more opportunities to discuss this.
Thank you.
Yeah, Delegate Foley, did you have something as well?
Yeah, my question is, and I always get confused on this: are you allowed to abstain?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think theoretically, if you're here on the Zoom, you are required to vote. So, Delegate Lehman, if you don't wish to vote, you may have to exit the Zoom, but I'll leave that. I'll leave that up to you. I think that if you are here and you're on camera and you're present, even in subcommittee meetings or in full committee meetings or on the floor, you are expected to vote.
Gotcha. Okay. I'll
but we won't hold it against you. If you vote yes and you end up changing your vote or needing more information or whatever, we won't hold it against you.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So any other further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of HB 17, please signify by either saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill passes out of subcommittee unanimously. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Delegate Davis, for reading the temperature of the room better than your chair. I'll try to do a better job next time. Thank you all. Hopefully you have enough time to go grab some lunch before 1 p.m. if you haven't already done so. See y'all later.